Welcome to another episode of the Bitter Jury Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Westoff, and joining me today is my friend, my original co-host, and the man who's been with me since Canada season 10. It's my friend, Charles Matthews. Charles, here we are, the first official episode in the books, Big Brother season 25. Julie Chen's back, live feeds are back. It feels good. It's a little late in the game. Usually we're doing this in midsummer in July, but we're here in August and we've got a house full of contestants. How are you feeling now that we've had the cast revealed?
Can we say that I'm relieved? Relieved in the sense of I'm actually excited, which I get excited every year, but sometimes I feel as if things start and I'm watching the intro and I'm already kind of wah-wah. But I didn't get that this season. So I'm really relieved that my initial thoughts are good.
I want to dig into that a little bit more, but before we do that, you actually, for those of you watching on YouTube, Charles, you beat me to it. I wanted to mention that this podcast started as more of just like an evening social for us to get together, have some drinks, and talk Big Brother. And so now that we're back to the original OG hosts, I wanted to cheers you. We have drinks on set.
Cheers,
we're gonna have some fun tonight. So cheers to that. Let's get it going. But yeah, diving kind of into that comment you just made before we get into my outline here. I kind of wanted to see, like, why did you have that reaction? Because I had the same thing. Like, I can't even pin place it exactly, but having seen the full cast reveal, Sarah and I, we recorded our first live stream podcast last night, and we were kind of saying the same thing. We're like, good vibes from this cast. Like, I don't think there's a single person on this cast where I'm just like, don't like them. Like, the Frenchie or the Mickey or the someone who just like, I'm like, all right, that's the person I want out of the house first. Like, it doesn't matter who goes home this week. I think I'm going to be sad no matter what. And I just think, like, you don't always get a cast that's, just given this many good vibes. And so I have a theory of why, that is, but I wanted to see, like, what is it that when you're watching the cast reveal you look for, and why do you think you feel so relieved about this cast?
Good question. I think that, you asked what I look for, and you do know that answer. I want somebody that's going to shake things up a little bit, but there were multiple people who, right from the gate, as we kind of talked about in our draft episode, who are willing to do whatever it takes to get to the end. So I'm excited that, for lack of a better way to say it, I'm excited that there's not a lot of people worried about their morals this season.
Okay.
Because again, that's why I watch the game. It's why, again, Bitter Jury is kind of a fitting yet ironic choice for our title. Because again, everybody's going to lie in the game, you shouldn't be mad that somebody lied to you better than you were able to do to them. So I just say get over it and give them the check. Outside of that, I feel as if even with everyone saying that they're willing to backstab and they're willing to play the game, everybody just seems so genuine, which I think will probably allow for a little bit more drama later on, because, as we've talked to some of the people who have been in the house before, it's such a crazy experience. If you're a genuine person, your feelings are going to get hurt, regardless of knowing what's going on and knowing that you're going to get lied to. It still sucks to deal with it outright. And I think as a result of everyone just seeming like an awesome person, that later on, once they start to create some bonds, it's going to make things a little bit more dicey, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. There was a good example in the live feeds today of the perfect encapsulation of that attitude that you're looking for. It's like where you're willing to get down, dirty, play the game, but still not take it personally. Cirie was talking to Jared, her son, today, and I don't remember who they were talking about. They just got done with the competition, and she thought somebody threw it. And so they're sitting there, they're working each other up. They're like, yeah, she's like, yeah, that guy's a dirt bag. Like, no way. He definitely threw that. And then they both like stepped out of their shell for a second. They're like, it is just a game and he is playing it. So like good on him, no hard feelings. And then they like came back into the game. They're like, but yeah, he's a dirt bag. And that's the clean fun I want to see. Like
Yeah,
have fun, get dirty, like play the game, fly, backstab, but don't like cross the line to where it's like become something more than the game, kind of
for
like
sure.
last year became. So I think this cast has done a pretty good job. You know, I won't do too many spoilers for you here, listeners on this podcast. If you want the spoilers, go listen to the live feed stuff. But even when there was I guess we call it a denomination ceremony where they took the 4 nominees down to 2, when they did that yesterday, the whole cast still went over and comforted the person still on the block instead of like last year where it was like, all right, now that we have a house target, let's just ostracize her, being Taylor last year. Could have seen a similar thing happen this year, but I like to see that, you know, they still were able to give the person support, and it just shows that
Yeah,
like it's a good solid group of people. And so I'm
yeah,
excited about the season. I'm excited about the cast. Um, and you know, we can kind of just stay on this page a little bit, because that's kind of how the premiere opened up. You know, we got to see all of the cast in the typical intro packages that CBS does for them. Was there a cast member that, you know, their intro package changed your mind about your initial impressions, or did someone like stand out to you outside of, you know, what you'd seen in the pre-show, you know, bios and little clips? Did the intro package, and I guess in general the whole premiere episode, we'll stay a little big picture still, but did anyone really change? Did your opinion change of anybody watching this premiere?
opinion change. I will say,
Not that there's a ton of information to go on, but
yeah. No, that's a fair question. I had, yeah, if I had to pick one, I'd probably say Luke, truthfully. I don't think I realized that he was as much of a nerd as he is. And now that makes me kind of like him a little bit more because I would kind of lump him in that group of pretty people that I defined the other day.
sure.
But you know, pretty nerds are awesome. You know, I'm a big geek, so anybody that's willing to admit that they're a little nerdy is okay with me for sure. What about you?
Yeah, well, I will say I wish Luke in the house would be a little more genuine.
Mm,
He did mention that he was going to play it a little dumb in his pre-show interviews, which he's been doing, and people are a little suspicious. They think he's playing too dumb. But he's leaning into the pretty boy, athletic, like macho guy. Like I want to group up with those guys, and it's not coming off as genuine. I think he'd be in a better position right now if he just kind of revealed that nerdy side of him. So yeah, looking through the cast, you know, I'm a little biased. I've been watching live feeds for like 3 days now, and so like I know a lot about these players, and so I'm not sure any of their packages really like changed my opinion. I also watched the show a little differently than you, knowing that I'm going to be watching the live feeds. Like if I wasn't watching it live, I probably would have just fast forwarded through all those intro packages. But I guess Cameron's intro package changed my mind a little bit. You know, he's got that. Do you watch SNL at all?
Sometimes,
He looks like Bobby Moynihan, doesn't he?
yes,
Like,
he
you know who that
does.
is?
100%.
He looks just like Bobby Moynihan. But I don't know. My vibes just from his pre-show interviews and stuff. I think I ranked him like 15th on my draft list. And so
Oh wow.
he was way low there. But when I got to see, you know, that he's a single dad and like, yeah, you know, that his background of being in the army and whatnot, I'd say that's, you know, my opinion of him raised a little bit.
Yeah.
It's since dropped back down now that he's in the house, but we'll get to that when we get to later episodes. I don't want
I
to
say
spoil
I
too
can't wait.
much.
I can't. I haven't finished listening to your live feed episode yet, but I've started,
Well,
so I'm excited.
even since last night, I watching live feeds today, I'm even more excited. Without giving too much away, just know that I think we've got like a straight down the middle 50-50 house that's just going to be going back and forth at each other, which those are always my favorite seasons. You've got like two big teams, and every
Yeah,
single week, everything's on the line.
yeah,
Is more fun than when it's more of like a scattered, like one big team picking people off and they just don't know that they're like not another side of the house.
yeah.
Like I'd like them to at least have a chance kind of thing. So
No, for well, and I mean, we've talked about this previously. I like seeing a 9-7 vote or
yeah,
a 5-4 vote when it's boring to watch all these unanimous votes.
yep.
Again, I watch the game to be entertained. I'm not going to be entertained from week to week if everybody knows everything that's going down. So, no, you just got me
Yeah.
excited even more.
And the way I frame it is even when there aren't two sides of the house, there really are. It's just that the side that's not the majority group hasn't aligned themselves together yet. They still have some
Hmm.
infighting. So it's like, let's get that crap out of the way to give yourselves a chance to go up against another big group. You got to be a big group. So it seems like we've got a pretty clean split this season, and it's going to just be Royal Rumble all the way down the stretch. So looking forward to that. Let's just start off the top. What do you think of Julie Chen? She's back for her 25th season. She
Julie was back on today. I did make a note. Let me see if I can find it here. If you go back and watch, she mispronounced the "go apocalypse." She said like "go poc." Go back and watch it. It kind of made me chuckle because the entire time up to that point, I was like, "Julie's back. She's ready."
I thought so
This is the
too.
24th. But yeah, that one little flub, which mind
Well,
you, she's making millions for doing that. It's okay to mess up here and there. But
sure.
no, I thought she was flawless as always. Julie,
Well, I
you're
wouldn't
my
say
girl.
flawless. I give her like an 80%. She started off strong. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought last season, especially, but even the season before, like every live show, she had like 3, 4 mistakes and
yeah.
like just like off cues, mispronouncings, or just like her weird little positive phrases at the end that sometimes make no sense. Like, although though I genuinely do love those, even though
Yeah.
sometimes they are a little out of the blue. Um, but last night she started strong. She was, on her P's and Q's, hitting her Q's. I think that rhymed. How about that? But I thought once we got towards like the competition time, and I think production can't kind of put her in a bad spot. We'll get to it later, but some of those games, I think they expected them to be a little shorter. And so Julie was sitting there having to just come up with like filler content while
Yeah.
nothing's happening on screen. So I can't fault her too much. But I did think that it got a little awkward there at the end. But Julie's Julie. We're always gonna love her. So glad she's back. I did see in a preseason interview, she said she wants her son to take over at some point because she's not sure she'll be here for season 50. So
Really?
maybe there's going to be a Chin dynasty here on this
Okay. Chin
host
Moon
of the
Ves.
show.
Chin Moon
Oh, sorry,
Ves.
Chin
Get it right.
Moonves.
Yes.
Yeah, with peace, love, and whatever she says at the end of the show. So doesn't really fit the Big Brother style. But speaking of things that don't always make sense, these pre-packaged segments, you know what? I'm going to split it down the middle here. I thought Big Brother did a fantastic job doing their like 3 to 5 minute recap of the last 25 years. Like I didn't watch, did you watch the episode last week where they had like their 25th anniversary?
No, and I actually want to go back and watch it.
Yeah,
I
I didn't
just
see it
didn't have
either.
time.
But I thought that first intro package that kind of was like the hype video, like, hey, we're about to get into the 25th season. Let's look at some of the best memories. I thought
Are you
that
talking about that shit with Frankie?
no, no,
No,
no.
okay, because that.
No, that's why I was splitting it down the middle.
Okay,
No,
okay.
I'm
All right.
talking about when they opened the show, Julie said like 5 words. They threw on like a package of like the brigade
Mhm.
and like Dan's speech, sorry, Dan's funeral and all that stuff. That was great. I thought
Yeah.
that like it brought back memories, got me all hyped. I'm like, all right, here we go. But yeah, what I really wanted to get to was the house's theme reveal and the little video package they put together with it was Frankie, Brittany, and Danielle. Is that who is
Uh,
Danielle, right?
yes.
Riz.
But I don't have words. I don't
Like
even want to talk about that. It was fucking awful.
Like, who wrote that script and was like, we got it? Like,
I don't. Hold
I
on,
feel
let me
like
see.
it was more like
Can you see this?
the face, yeah, Frankie. I feel like it was more like CBS when they were planning this episode. They're like, we got to do like a little segment. Someone write a script, and like they ran out of time. They're like, this is all we got. Just film it. Like, get Frankie. He'll have big facial expressions. Yeah, that was my face the whole time as
That
well.
exactly. And again, I had told myself that if you brought this up, that was just going to be my response.
Like, one, I'm not even sure I understand this year's theme, the multiverse, with 4 different themes. But before we even get to what the theme is, the intro package was 3 old alumni members are going to sneak into the house with a time machine. They're going to use the time machine to go back and replay their seasons, but win this time. But then they pressed the wrong button, and it ended up creating 4 dimensions in the house of different themes that have nothing to do with the past. It's scary theme. Sorry, I should have written these down. Oh no, I did write them down. It's the Humiliverse, the Scrambleverse, the Comic Verse, and the Scary Verse. Like, where are we? What are we doing here? I like. I feel like they were just like, all right, these are the twists we want. Someone put together something to make it work, and they couldn't come up with it. So like, oh, space, different dimensions. I don't know what they were thinking. Can you explain it?
I don't know what they were thinking, but I got to admit, I'm here for it. Again, the nerd in me is all about the multiverse, and I like how there could be a multitude of different things go wrong
Yeah.
this year. Again, I don't like how they introduced it. That was just too much. And I don't even know where to begin in trying to explain how it made me feel, except for the face that I drew on my notepad here.
And sorry,
but no, I think
what's real
what's
quick.
that?
This is a podcast, and so for those just listening, the face that Charles keeps showing on his notepad is just that emoji where the eyes are straight lines, the mouth is a straight line, and it's just like, I've got no emotions, leave me alone. So sorry, continue.
No. Thank you. I forgot about that. But no, I think the multiverses are going to be a cool twist. Yeah, because it's going to be able to change it up, which I mean, it's a Big Brother house, so they could change it up anyway. But I like that one of those orbs getting activated could just mean something different every time. So no, I'm here for it.
Big picture, are you a fan of twists in general?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, see, this is I originally I was too, and then when I became a live feeder, I the twists end up affecting the actual game itself. Like, when people are uncomfortable about what could come next, they end up not wanting to make a big move and just staying safe with their group until they understand how the game can play out further. And so I've learned to dislike twists, but you know what? It makes it interesting, you know.
Yeah. Shake it up. So, throw it in there.
Exactly. Shake it up.
Not to backtrack on kind of where we've gone, but I had a note because I don't know if anybody else noticed this. So when group 2 entered the house, did you notice how they were the only group that didn't immediately like say, hey, my name is blah, 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 blah. They tried to go outside, and I'm guessing production actually told them to turn around and go back and to introduce themselves. And I don't know why I caught that, but it was kind of funny because you see them enter, they kind of just do the whole, oh my gosh, this is so great. And then they start to walk outside, and they get there, and I guess the door wasn't open. Yeah. So they all turn around and then go, oh, hey.
I didn't notice that. As you can see, I half pay attention to these. I'm like, let's get to these competitions. I want to see who's gonna be the head of household, who's gonna, be the nominee. So all that stuff's fluff to me. I'm like, all right, fast forward.
I like watching. I like the nuances, which you would think I would be a feeder, but I just don't have time.
Yeah, I know it does take a while. It takes up a lot of my time. It's on in the background right now. It's just constantly on in my house. At least when Gruskin's not home like he is now. So, but speaking of, the transitioning to the backyard, we got all of our house guests. I guess one switch of this year I mean, these are just minor things, but we have one premiere episode with very little personalities to talk about. So I'm really breaking down everything here. Um, Usually they bring out four and then they let them in the house, and they bring out four, let them in the house. This time they brought out all 16 at once. Not that I think it makes a big difference. I just thought interesting, something to note. Um, but the big change this season, now that we are getting to the backyard and the games that we did play, uh, they changed it up for the first. I don't know if it's for the first time, but it's for the first time that I can remember. That the opening ceremony competitions are not being played for a head of household position. It's actually the scramble verse. We're flipping it upside down, and every loser of four different mini games is a nominee. Um, what were your thoughts on this switch up? And did you? I've got some theories on how I think it affects the game, but how do you think it'll affect the game? Or do you think it matters at all?
I think it matters for sure, especially they came out of the gate and, four people were nominated before, you know, I don't know timing, but I mean, in less than an hour,
Right.
at that point. So, of course, they're already on pins and needles. And as you mentioned, there's not even a head of household. So, that's going to change up the game just from my perspective. If they continue doing that, or if they do it later in the game, that's just going to mess up everybody's outlook on how they approach the game in the first place. And I don't know if you know this, and I don't know if it'll ruin anything, but so is the HOH essentially just taking two of those people off, or four people staying on?
It, Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to know, this episode will only be out for 20 hours before the next episode reveals the answer. But the answer to that is yes. When a head of household does take over, their job is to take two people off the block. And so that's actually, my sister and I had a discussion about this last night. I think this has a huge effect on the game. One of the biggest strategies you can have, or one of the biggest advantages you can get in that first week of the game, is to become the first HOH. It's the center of gravity of power, and kind of lets you set up the board for how the game's going to play out. Like, I think, I'm a big fan of Taron Armstrong and his live feed analysis. And he did a summer podcast where he analyzed what percentage winning the first HOH helps you to actually win the entire game. And it gives you a 20% bump to have a chance of winning the game. And it's for good reason. Like, if you're that first HOH, every person in the house is going to make a point to come to you. Most of them are going to make offers to become alliance members, whether they like you or not. And then you kind of get to pick, who your people are, and you get to form that first big alliance most of the time. And it's really hard to fight against that grain if you're an outsider, not the HOH, trying to start a big group, against the HOH. It's almost impossible. And so this season, without someone being named HOH for the first 24 plus hours, this is kind of why I think there was maybe such good vibes in the house. Is there wasn't just all right, we're first moments in the house, there's already a power dynamic. This person's the most important. We got to suck up to them. Everybody, it wasn't everybody level playing field. Yes, there were nominees, but nobody put those nominees up. And so there was nobody to blame, no one to have ill feelings towards. It was just, look at the draw, we lost the competitions. And so it created a more friendly environment and allowed people to get to know each other more in that 24 hours before the HOH competition was played, and really find their people that they gelled with more based on personalities than just power dynamics. So I think that's going to be a big. I'm excited to see how the season plays out and if we can actually notice any differences. And then on top of just that, I won't reveal who became the HOH, but that person now goes into the first week with all of the benefits of being the first HOH, creating the power structure. Yeah, you're a day late, but everyone does come up to you still. But you didn't have to get blood on your hands. And if you can manage to eke out not having to renominate somebody with a veto, then you've gone that first week with all the benefits and basically no blood. You save two people rather than putting two people up. Um,
True.
so yeah, I think
Very
that's going to
true.
be a big difference.
Do you think that it's going to create a little bit of animosity though, like for the people that they choose to keep there?
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, there's going to be hurt feelings like, oh, you didn't save me. But there's less of a lingering effect, I think. Like one of those people is probably going home, so you don't have to worry about them. So you have
Right.
one person left over, and the worst feelings they're having towards you is that you didn't save them. So it's not like you nominated them, you didn't put them on the block, you just didn't do them the favor of saving them. So yeah, there's always going to be some sort of downside to being HOH. Like you're not going to just have all the benefits, but this is about as good as it gets.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I mean, you can throw that back at them, right? If you don't want to be nominated, then just go win. Like
yeah,
you put yourself there. So
exactly. Um, but yeah, so these games, I,
go
I,
ahead.
so I
Sorry,
was,
one of them made me laugh
I like,
hysterically.
I know, so my sister last night said like CBS basically built like this monstrosity of a set, and then like the games were like these little pipsqueak games. I was like, Sarah, you've got to go watch BB10. I'm sorry, BB Canada 10. Like,
Oh, for sure.
I was like, in Canada, they'd play all four of these games, and you'd still be just warming up.
Yeah, that would be one game for
Yeah,
Canada.
exactly. But I guess we don't have to go in any order. Let's just start with which one made you laugh hysterically.
I feel as if you're gonna agree. The butt kicking.
I was between that or the hanging one for different reasons. But
No, watching it's Kirsten, right?
yep.
I could not stop laughing. Like I almost passed out. I was laughing so hard
Because
because
you could just read the hatred in her eyes. Like,
and she was struggling so bad. Everybody else was like 30 kicks ahead of her. And she was just uncontrollably. I will say,
she couldn't find a rhythm. It was just
you're
like,
gonna have to you're gonna have to go watch this though, so that you have an idea of the reference I'm gonna make.
yeah,
But anybody listening, if you go watch the Nicki Minaj Ariana Grande music video to Side,
I
just
can't picture
picture
it.
that video and think about SNL doing it as a spoof. That was Kirsten.
Okay, I'll have to go look that up to get the full effect.
It, I, yeah, I laughed so hard. Um,
I felt bad for like Blue too. Like it looked difficult, and then like that took a lot of effort. And like here you are, you're on national television for the first time probably in your life. You did all your makeup, you got all pretty, you're smelling nice, you're meeting your house guests for the first time, and then you choose the wrong competition and have to put in vigorous effort for like 6 minutes. And I'm sure when you're done, you're sweating, you got pit stains, you smell a little, and you're like, hi, my name's whatever. Like I'd be so pissed. I'd be like, I I'm like, you're making me look like a scrub on national television my first night. Like,
oh gosh,
let me get slimed. I'll get slimed. I just don't want to be like pit stained and sweaty.
really? You were really thinking about that?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like
Oh wow.
first impressions, and especially because they like kept zooming in on a Blue, and I was like, she's got to just be working up a sweat with the amount of how hard she was working.
Well, I'm interested too, though, because that was, the Humiliverse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing that throughout the season that everything's going to be a little humiliating like that.
Can I
And
spoil something for you?
sure.
So in the have not room, every time you leave the room, there's a spin wheel with numbers on it. You spin it. There's a bunch of ones, some fives, a couple tens, and two 25s.
Hmm.
And there's a butt kicking machine by the door. And every time you leave the room, you have to spin it and do that many butt kicks. So it's not going away. And it's so loud that like you can hear it from downstairs. So if you're trying to sneak up to the have not room to have a conversation, when you leave, you're basically like, everyone, I'm up here.
And every individual has to do it to
Oh yeah.
leave, or if you and I enter together, you
Nope.
can do the butt kicks, and then we both
we,
go out.
we both do a separate spin.
Oh wow,
So
yeah, I love
yeah.
this season.
But kicks are here to stay.
Comedic value
I'm sure it's gonna
Good
get
job,
real old.
CBS.
Yeah. Other competition. So butt kick. We had Matt, Kirsten, Heman, and Blue. I kind of like that was meant for like big muscular guys. Like the girls had no chance to keep up with them. So it was mostly competition down to Blue and Kirsten. And it was like who's willing to sweat more on national television. So Kirsten lost that one, so she's nominated.
Terribly.
Let's go to the other one I thought was hilarious for different reasons.
Oh god.
The hanging game. I'm going to start listening for the names of these competitions because I always just make them up as I'm writing out my outline.
That's fine.
But the hanging game, you know which one I'm talking about. They're not hanging vertically; they're laying down on the ground, which is also a little weird. Like, like the camera shot from above, and everyone's just like face down on a mat, holding on to these like rock climbing things, and then like I'm not sure how much time was allotted for this competition or how many times they tested it, but I feel like they were prepared for it to go like 90 seconds. And then when it lasted like 6, 7 minutes, like I felt bad for Julia. Like I said earlier, like she kept being like, "Oh man, like these guys are working real hard. Like look how difficult it is." And then she kept being like, "Oh, like." And the part I thought was funny was that nothing was happening. There was nothing to show. Like even the people watching the competition, like they weren't even making like
It
surprising
got
faces.
quiet. Yeah.
They were just like watching, and so it was just like cameras switching between people doing nothing for like 6 minutes. I was like, as the producer of much less watched YouTube shows myself, I was cringing on the inside for the producers of the show, being like, "This is terrible television. Like someone's gotta like throw some oil on there. Someone's gotta slip."
And see, I was waiting on that. And truth be told, I'm a big horror movie fan. So when they had the scary verse and they showed this big black thing and these hands holding onto them, I actually kind of got pumped because I was anticipating, especially when it made kind of the initial jerk and you saw the tension. I was expecting them to get flung back into the thing bungee style, that which again would have been way better for TV. But instead, he lets go and then idly sits there for 45 seconds.
And then gets dragged.
And then he slowly gets pulled in and he's just like, okay.
He's like, "I'll see you guys."
So yeah, that comp was a letdown for sure.
Yeah, and just for those watching, that comp was Riley, Luke, Red, and Corey. Corey lost. There's been some theorizing that maybe it was a little unfair. Corey being the shortest probably had the most like elastic range to get to his ankle, and so probably had extra tension compared to the taller guys. But that's just speculation. But terrible television. Other two that we had the puzzle game, classic Big Brother, take a 3D puzzle and make it fit. So that one was Nicole, Bowie, Jared, and America. America blazed through it. She was done.
My girl.
Was she on your team?
Yeah, of course she's on my team.
I'm jealous. I think she might be my, like, after watching live feeds, I don't think she's in the best position, but I think she's my favorite player right now. She's a live feeder. So.
I told you. I'm good at picking them.
That was a good choice. And yeah, so she blazed through that puzzle. So she could be a comp threat. Surprisingly, or I wouldn't call it surprisingly, but the loser of that competition was Jared, which interesting because we'll find out later that he, although being disadvantaged because he's on the block, will be getting a bit of an advantage at the end of this episode. We'll get to that in a minute. But anything you really want to elaborate on in the puzzle competition?
No, it was a puzzle comp. We see them all the time.
Yeah, it was the scramble verse, I guess, because it's a puzzle, so you scrambled it. Yeah, we're the writers of the show were like, we're putting in our B effort here. And then the last one, the power grid, where you had to plug in certain chords. Jag, Felicia, Cameron, and Izzy. Kind of like the puzzle game. Like Jag was on that. He was done in like a second.
And I still want him for my team. I was thinking the other day, we need to think of some way that we can trade amongst ourselves if we put people on the table.
Yeah, we're having a trade, like for like a real fantasy football kind of thing. Interesting. Yeah, maybe we can come up with a rule like that. Jag was my he was a favorite of mine before we did our draft, and he's in a very good position in the house. So solid player, and he
Yeah.
won that game. Loser was Felicia. I could have told you when she walked up the steps to that game, she was probably going to be the loser. So,
Did
but
you
I like
watch?
Felicia.
Speaking of Felicia, I don't know, and I didn't watch the full thing. But have you watched Tiffany's podcast at all?
No,
Uh,
not this year.
they did kind of a pre-show, and they laughed so hard about Felicia saying that she was going to like blend in with the younger people. Zarek about fell out of his chair laughing so hard, and I felt a little bad, but I also laughed as a result of that. But
She's not the only one. I think Bowie said in her intro package she was going to lie about her age. I think she's like
yeah, she
almost
said she's going to say she's 35 instead of 45 or
yeah, something like that.
something like that. Yeah.
I can say so far in the house, she's kind of bonding with the older players. And so her blending in as a younger player isn't going great, but she's doing fine. So but yeah, that was the game. We got 4 nominees out of it. We have Jared, Kirsten, Felicia, and Corey. Corey also got a bit of an extra punishment. He was dragged to, I'm going to get this wrong. The players keep getting it wrong, so I don't even know what it's called. Was it the Nether World, the Nether region?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounds a little naughty to me. the Nether region.
What are you into? Good grief.
um, but yeah, so I guess the only other big thing from this premiere is the reveal of Cirie. So I guess first off, do you watch any Survivor? Did you know who she was at all?
I knew who she was.
Okay.
I watch Survivor, but I'm not committed to Survivor. So I could go in and out of a season, or I could watch one season and not watch again for 3 years.
Mhm.
But I'll keep up, with tweets and texts. But it's
Sure.
kind of funny. I have a friend who is a huge Survivor fan, and I've been trying to get him to watch Big Brother for the past 4 or 5 years, and of course he
Yeah.
vetoes that because he's like, Big Brother's stupid. um, also, selfishly, I'm trying to get him to watch so that I can now get him to listen to the podcast.
There you go. One at a
And
time.
so,
Grassroots effort.
exactly. And so I texted him and said, "You have a reason to watch now." And he goes, "What's going on?" And I said, "We have a surprise house guest this year, and it's Cirie." And he started freaking out, and he goes, "Oh wow, I might actually watch because she's from when Survivor was actually still good." And he does kind of make a good point. Like the season she was on in that
Mhm.
time frame, like Survivor was fucking awesome. So we may have a new viewer because of her.
Oh, I appreciate your grassroots efforts. Yeah, so I mean, I don't watch any Survivor. I watched, I think, season 1, and I got it on DVD at Blockbuster back in like 1999 or something, or 2002. So that was the only season I've ever seen. Um, but and so like when they showed like the hidden reveal before the commercial break of like the back of her, I was like, who is that? And I'm like going through all the people it could be. I'm like, no, it's not, Tiffany, not Devon. Like she's an older player. I'm like, who's older that would be invited back? And then when they revealed her, I like it was meant nothing to me. I was like, I have no idea who this is. So I was like, all right, like how big a deal is this? Is this just like a simple crossover? And then um hearing, from BB Twitter, from other Big Brother podcasts, like this is a big deal.
Yeah.
I heard it from the Rob Has a Podcast premiere night episode. They were comparing it to as if Dr. Will or Dan went on Survivor, like that level of legend player of the game doing a crossover show. And so now that I've heard that, I'm like, all right, like that just made this season even more exciting. Like I don't have to know anything about her, but to have that kind of comparison to be that kind of a legendary player, like you just know, like
Yeah.
it's the same game. It's just not, you don't have to survive. You don't have to go and
Yeah.
fish for your own food. And
You're
so
not eating bugs and
all those skills of manipulation, of,
mhm.
creating, groups of people that, people person, creating comfort around, your people, creating alliances, like all those skills are going to translate. She's now got 4 seasons of practice. And I think maybe the biggest advantage is that like no one in the house knows who she is. Like we did see.
So they don't know her.
Oh, I guess yeah. So I'll kind of break
Well,
it down
no,
for you.
I do want that spoiler because not to cut you off, my initial thought is there's bound to be people that know her
Sure.
just because of her history of reality TV.
Mhm.
So is she going to be an immediate threat as a result of that?
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about
Or,
too. Like when
yeah.
every time an alumni comes back, they're the big target at first, and they have to like
Mhm.
maneuver those first few weeks before they get some shields up around them. Well, I before I tell you exactly how it played out, did you see at the end of the episode, like especially during the credits, like Izzy and Jared were doing like a pinky promise, like whispering to each other.
Mhm.
So people speculated, and they are correct. Izzy did like clock that Jared was her son.
Okay.
I'm not sure how. I think
I
she
figured that's what that was too.
she apparently like went back and watched all the Big Brother seasons this year and a lot of the Survivor seasons and did a bunch of homework before she came on the show. So she clocked it, like told Jared before this live episode was even over.
Wow.
So so that kind of like created a little bond between the three of them, like Cirie, Jared, and Izzy. Like they're sharing that secret. Nobody in the house besides Izzy knows about the mother-son relationship. So that's completely secret at the moment, and they're not telling people. Although, like
And
when
you're
you,
sure of that, or do you as
yeah, I'm sure of it.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
from watching live feeds, private conversations, no one's calling it out. No one's even clocking it. Although I find it hard to believe because every time Jared's on screen, I'm like, you can see Cirie, like same
Yeah.
facial. I'm like, once these people get, the newness wears off and they start that like dreaded boredom of like week 3, 4, they're gonna start being like, huh, they kind of look
Why
like.
do you look alike? Yeah.
I was like, Sarah and I were talking about it last night. How do you navigate that? Like, say, like, uh, you know, if me and my mom were in the house together, we've had family vacations. I would just like in week 3, people would be like, "Oh, what's your family vacation you've always loved?" And like, if I was, maybe I'd be like, "Oh yeah, we went to Yellowstone when I was 8." And then like separately, they go talk to my mom in another room, like, "What's your favorite vacation?" She's like, "Oh yeah, went out to Yellowstone a couple like about 10 years ago." And they'd be like, "That's weird. Jared also went to
He just said that.
Yellowstone."
Yeah.
So how do you avoid those kind of like trip ups? I like that's got to be so difficult. And I like he's calling her mom a lot in side conversations. Like you got to start cutting that out. Like you're
Yeah.
going to be caught. So, but to break down how it actually is he's the only one that knows about the relationship. She did like it was revealed that she played Survivor. That's kind of like I know we didn't see it on the episode, but it was like that's why she wasn't in the backyard with them. It was like a special reveal. So she kind of like let it know she let everyone know that she played Survivor, and people in the
Okay.
house recognized her. Like Felicia went straight up to her; she recognized her immediately from Survivor. Corey recognized her because his brother played Survivor, and then Izzy. Everyone else though didn't really know who she was, and then even I'm a little I don't know Corey how much he knows about her because brother on the show maybe he knows more, but he hasn't let on. But even Izzy, like no one knows the extent of who she is. Like for example, they were having conversations in the bathroom yesterday, and Felicia was like, "Oh yeah, Cirie, tell them about like how many people you beat on Survivor. Like what place did you finish in?" And she was like, "Which season?" And I think Jag turned her and he was like, "You were on more than one season." So they know she's somebody, but they
Yeah.
don't know how big a threat she really is.
Yeah. And you can say yes or no, or you can expand on this, but how shocked was Jared? Like, do we get to see that initial conversation or
So I couldn't tell you 100% he knew she was coming in, but I'm pretty confident. Like Sarah last night was trying to say like she still thought maybe he didn't know. They did show what I think was their first private conversation on the live feeds that first night. And like they got right into business. Like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what's going on with me. And like, if you didn't know your mom was coming on the
Yeah,
show, that first conversation, as soon as you're in private, you'd be like, what the heck? What are you doing here?
yeah.
And it wasn't that kind of reaction. So I think they both knew it coming into the
And
house.
that's what I would have expected, but I was thinking back on, his intro package and showing him zooming with her and her,
Right.
okay, you're gonna go win this and da 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 da. And we're gonna go, or not we, but you're gonna go do this.
Yeah.
I started to think, okay, maybe that was just super scripted, depending on if he actually knew or
Yeah.
not.
I do think it was scripted. So, but just to expand on like the whole situation, not only does she have an advantage, with her reality television history and playing similar game, but I just think this completely like if we were redrafted today, Jared or Cirie would be my first pick. And it's because the biggest advantage you could possibly have in this game is to have someone you trust and know will not betray you. That's what you're looking for. That's why, Tyler and Casey, they make that pinky promise day one, ride or die. Like that's what like you can rely on. If you know you have someone who you can share information with, it's not going to leak out and you can bounce ideas off of, then you have an advantage. And then if you can get into a scenario where you're on opposite sides of the house and can share information in between, like you're going to steamroll this game. So I just think like this like I I don't want to always refer to other podcasts I've listened to, but I see this podcast as just like a culmination of all the information I've gathered from listening and
For
watching
sure.
and whatnot. And so
And we're better because we drink, but
exactly. But I mean, this sounds ridiculous, but Taryn gave like they were asking, what do you think the percentage of her chances are to win? And he honestly said 50 to 60% chance. Like she's that good a player, and you have that big an advantage having
really,
a relative in the house that
yeah.
he's that confident in her ability to win. So I think it makes for a fascinating dynamic to the season. I'm
Mm.
super excited to see, especially like I wish I was a bigger Survivor fan because that's the reason I don't watch Survivor is because you don't get to see the behind the scenes, what's actually happening. And if I was a Survivor fan, now like for years having all this respect for Cirie's game and now being able to watch her every single day. Oh, how does she actually do the things that she does behind the scenes without the editor's cut on it? It's gonna just make for good television.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know. I'm kind of hot and cold on what I think the dynamic's going to be overall, especially since Izzy now right from the gate knows who she is. If I'm on the other side of things and I'm in the house and I see someone like Cirie, even if I don't know, once those conversations of the, oh, well, you've played Survivor more than once, da 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 da, that's red flag for me, right?
Right.
I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you don't get there because you have proven that you know what to do. There's no reason I should keep you there. And obviously you can align with them, but again, if I'm Izzy, yeah, I'm going to align with you because I'm going to call you out on it and say, hey, I'm going to keep your secret. But I'm going to be having a conversation with about 5 other people saying, we can't let her get to jury because I feel as if that's going to be the defining point of if you let this person with a track record stay around, you're taking $750,000 out of your own pocket.
You hit that nail on the head. I'm shocked because I haven't seen anything like that so far in the house. And like that would be the first thing, like not knowing any players from Survivor. Just if you told me you were on more than one season,
Yep.
like you were instantly top of my list to get out of the
Target
house.
number one.
You could have been the first person out on both those seasons, but you've got experience on how the game works and how people maneuver in games like this. That alone would make
Yep.
you my number one target. And to know that you're probably, if you were invited back for a second season, unless you're David from Big Brother 22 or 23, you're probably invited back because you're a good player and because
Yeah.
America likes you or
Yep.
because you did really well. And so it's shocking that it isn't more of a red flag, but maybe that just goes to show how good of a player she is. That she
Yeah.
was able to quickly blend in with the rest of the house guests.
No,
So
keep your. I'm not even going to say keep your friends close and enemies closer. I'm going to say keep your enemies closer. Like
yep,
she is going to be somebody to beat for sure.
yep. So that basically does it for the premiere episode. Really, to wrap this episode up, I kind of want to see what are your predictions for how this week plays out, and do you have any long-term predictions now that we've had? Spend a little time with these house guests. Do you have a favorite going forward? Do you feel good about your team? And who do you think of these nominees is most at risk?
I feel great about my team still. Obviously, I've not watched as much as you, but Red would probably have still been my number one pick after watching day one. In his comp with the pulling of the scary verse or whatever, he showed that he's going to be a beast. Obviously he's former military too, so
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be a physical threat, and he's proven that he is willing to kind of get tangled up in the game. So super excited about that. Again, Luke and America, they had amazing showings in their comps too. So really looking forward to that. I will throw out there, and I'm probably going to mispronounce his name. Hisham. He, uh,
Hissam.
Hissam.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't like him just because I think he has the most obnoxious laugh I have ever heard in my life. I actually muted the TV at one point, so I may end up missing some gameplay if he's laughing a lot this season because I can't deal with that.
I get the same vibes.
I can't do it. And you know what? This may end up being a situation like Pooch, where I trash talk someone and we end up becoming friends once we get to interview them. But
that's a great
sorry.
point. I wasn't a Pooch fan either when he was in the house at first, and now we're co-workers sort of. So
and you all have your other podcasts too. It's freaking crazy.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, this season, I keep saying it, it's going to be great. I think the twists are going to be, I don't know, the twists are going to be different just because they're presented in that different way with a multiverse. So it's going to add a twist on a twist, which I'm excited about. As far as the 4 nominees, I got to look at our cheat sheet here.
Jared, Kirsten, Felicia, Corey.
I mean, worst position, I would truthfully say Corey, just because, as we've seen in past seasons, the older players, unless they're just completely wretched people, get through a few weeks here and there just because people don't look at them as a threat. Right. So they try to get rid of somebody else. Corey is young. He's athletic. I don't know if he reveals that he's a persuasive speaker to the stars as he did in his intro package. But I would say Corey would be in a bad position since I haven't seen as much as you have at this point.
Yeah, solid logic there. I know too much to make a prediction, but I will say overall, how do I feel about my team? Well, I'd almost go in reverse order. My last pick, Riley, is probably my strongest player right now. My first pick, McCole, I swear she wasn't on a single camera of the live feeds the first 36 hours. I was like, is she in this house? So I'm a little
what was she
worried
doing?
about
Sleeping, or
she's just quiet and like not coming out of her shell a lot. So I'm like, where is she? They don't even have the backyard right now. There's like 6 rooms. And so she just hasn't been around. And then Kirsten's my other pick, and maybe I'm revealing too much but with how this week goes, but she's not in a great position. She's a little at risk. So
I mean, you got a little cocky there with your I did pick the winner last year.
I didn't pick the winner. I picked Monty, second place.
Okay. But You do have to remember that in our first episode or in our first season
Oh, you
together,
picked Kevin.
I did pick the winner.
So we're dead even right now. Oh no,
yeah,
you're ahead. You have a winner.
yeah,
I have a second
I'm a
place.
little ahead. Yeah.
All right. Well,
See, and Red gives me Kevin vibes. So if you watch the season of Big Brother Canada with us, Red gives me a little bit of Kevin vibes. So I have
who's
high
your team?
hopes.
It's Red, Luke, and
America.
okay. I already told you America's good spot. Red's
Yeah,
fine. Luke, he's probably your weakest candidate right now, but
for
none
sure.
of them are in trouble right now. So
Yeah.
we'll be all right. And just a little tease for all of those not following the live feeds. It's looking, it is currently Saturday evening. We've played Veto earlier today. It's looking like we're going to have a split house down the middle. We might have an 8 versus 8 after this week, which, as Charles and I were discussing before the show started, that's when this show gets the best, when you got two teams going at each other. We're not getting any of those 15-1 votes, or I guess you wouldn't have 16 people voting, 13-1 votes kind of thing. Nobody wants boring television. So it's gearing up to be an exciting season. And we're going to be here all season long, coming at you multiple days a week, doing episode recaps, live feed breakdowns. I'm excited for it. I know Charles is too. That's going to do it for us here tonight on this premiere episode. We'll be back. I haven't told you yet, but Monday afternoon, evening, Charles, we're going to bring Richard on and recap our Sunday night episode. And then we'll be back later in the week, Wednesday episode, Thursday episode, live feed recaps. We're going to be doing it all. So for those of you who have joined us here on this new season, thank you for listening. Tell your friends about it. It's a grassroots effort. One listener at a time, as Charles has said. So last word goes to you, Charles. Final thoughts heading into this BB 25th season.
Let's fucking go.
Amen.
I'm ready.
Amen. I'm ready for more White Claws too on these episodes.
We're gonna have to coordinate our drinks one day. Well, I don't really like White Claw, so we can't do that. But
I know. I'll go back to my Kentucky roots and we'll do some bourbon. So
okay, that's fair. That's fair.
But all right, that does it for tonight. I'm not doing any big intros and outros anymore because they don't sound very good. So thank you for listening, and we will be back soon.